I've never been one to believe in old wives' tales or folklore. My grandmother used to tell me stories about the Baba Yaga when I was a kid. She would lean in close, her voice dropping to a whisper, and describe the witch's chicken-legged hut and her taste for lost souls. I would laugh, thinking it was all just a way to scare me into behaving. But now, as I sit here in this rotting cabin in the middle of nowhere, I'm not laughing anymore. It all started when I decided to take a break from the city. Work was stressing me out, and a week in the wilderness seemed like the perfect remedy. I found a listing for a cheap cabin on a remote rental site, the kind that looks like it hasn't been updated since the 90s. The pictures were blurry, but the price was unbeatable, and I figured a little rustic charm wouldn't hurt. The drive was long and winding, the road narrowing as I got closer to my destination. By the time I arrived, the sun was already setting, casting long shadows over the dense forest. The cabin looked more decrepit in person, but I told myself it was just for a few days. I unloaded my things and settled in for the night. The first odd thing I noticed was the smell. It was faint at first, a mix of damp earth and something metallic like rust. I chalked it up to the age of the cabin and opened a window to air the place out. But the smell didn't go away. In fact, it seemed to get stronger as the night wore on. I woke up to a noise around midnight, a soft scratching at the window. Groggy and disoriented, I stumbled out of bed and pulled back the curtain. My heart nearly stopped. There, standing just outside, was a figure. She was hunched over, her skin pale and wrinkled, with eyes that seemed to glow in the dark. Her bony fingers scratched at the glass, leaving deep, jagged marks. I wanted to scream, but my voice caught in my throat. The figure turned and shuffled into the woods, disappearing into the darkness. I slammed the curtain shut and backed away, my mind racing. I remembered my grandmother's stories, the way she described Baba Yaga's skeletal appearance and her insatiable hunger for the lost and the foolish. It couldn't be real, I told myself. It was just a dream, a figment of my overactive imagination. The next day, I tried to shake off the encounter. I went for a hike, hoping the fresh air would clear my head. But the forest was oppressive, the trees closing in on me, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig made me jump. I felt eyes on me, watching, waiting. As dusk fell, I reluctantly returned to the cabin. The smell was stronger now, almost unbearable. I followed it to the back of the cabin, where I found a trapdoor I hadn't noticed before. It was hidden under a threadbare rug, the wood around it stained dark. My hands shook as I pulled it open, revealing a narrow staircase leading into the basement. I descended slowly, the smell intensifying with each step. The basement was dimly lit by a single flickering bulb. In the corner, I saw a pile of old bones, some still with scraps of flesh clinging to them. My stomach churned, and I stumbled back, horrified. Then I heard it, a soft, raspy whisper coming from the shadows. "You shouldn't have come here." I spun around, and there she was, the figure from last night. She stepped into the light, revealing her full form. Her eyes were black pits, her mouth twisted into a grotesque grin. She reached out a clawed hand, and I felt a cold chill run down my spine. I turned and ran, scrambling up the stairs and slamming the trapdoor shut behind me. I grabbed my keys and bolted out the door, not looking back. I drove through the night, not stopping until I was back in the city, the lights and sounds a welcome relief from the oppressive silence of the forest. I never went back to that cabin, never spoke of what I saw. But the smell, that metallic, earthy smell, sometimes it follows me. And when it does, I know she's near, waiting, watching, wanting my soul. And I remember my grandmother's warning. Some stories aren't just stories.